Well, good morning, everyone. As you all know, I'm Paul Flannery, Executive Director of IYBA, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have the opportunity to spend a little time with one of the legends of our industry. Most of you know John Staluppi, know him by name. His boats are legendary. He's been around the industry for quite a long time. Everybody knows the boats that are named after the James Bond movies, the 007 movies. John has been a constant in this industry for as long as I can remember, and I don't want to make it sound like he's old, because I am, but we've both been at it for quite a while. John, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Happy to do it.
Well, I'm glad. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to invite you here to talk with us is because our educational component is incredibly important to me. And I thought it would be really wonderful to have an owner's perspective as to how the industry is seen from, I wouldn't say outside, but from alongside. So the brokerage community, you know, in every industry, we kind of have blinders on, and we try to be aware and have perspective, but we don't often have the opportunity to hear from the people that we serve candidly and honestly what their perspective is and what goes on behind the scenes with them. But where I want to start, you know, many of the boats that you've had are iconic. How did you get engaged in the boating industry in the first place? How did you happen into it?
It's crazy. When I was younger, I worked in a Chevrolet dealership in Brooklyn. And my boss had a Shepherd boat.
Okay.
This is an old mahogany wooden boat.
Right.
It had 6-cylinder Chrysler engines in it. And he says, John, I'd love to make this boat go a little faster. What do you think we can do? I said, well, let me look at it. I looked at the boat, and I was never even worked on a boat in my life. Right. I knew about boats, loved boats, but never worked on them. And I says, you know, we could put 2 Chevrolet small blocks in here. I says, I think they'll fit. And I started looking at a 62 Corvette that we had in the shop there, and I was measuring the engines and measuring everything. And I says, we could put this in. So I went to one of these conversion places to find out if they can make a bell housing that would bolt up to the Chrysler transmission.
Right.
And I converted the boat and put these Corvette engines in the boat.
I got to think the moment he said faster, your juices started flowing.
Yep, and it was exciting, and had the boat for a while, and it was unbelievable.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So speaking of faster, that's one of the things. I remember the first time I saw one of your boats. I was coming out of Shinnecock Inlet. It was 1987. I came out of the inlet. I was running down to Atlantic City to fish a tournament. And you know, when you're offshore, you're accustomed to what things look like, and you're used to seeing things on the horizon or things close, and you kind of know what they're going to appear to be. And I looked to the western horizon, and I saw this white spot. But behind the white spot was like this spray or fog, and I couldn't quite figure out, was it smoke? What the heck was it? Well, I all of a sudden realized that must be Octopussy. And I had just gotten done teaching a sea school class a few months before, and Tommy Grandinetti was in my class.
Right.
He got his master's license. So I called up on there, and as it turns out, you tell me how fast you guys were going. You were running, I think, out to Block Island for lunch or something.
Yeah. Most of the time we were up there, we'd run 42, 43 knots, no matter where we went.
Right.
And the boat was pretty incredible. And it'd be funny because we'd be there having drinks, and guys would pull next to us with these small race boats, Scarabs at the time. Some guys had cigarettes, all types of outboard boats. And they would pull alongside of me. We'd be having a cocktail, and they'd come like racing alongside of me. I tell my guy, Barron, hit it. And we would nail it. And before you know it, you see them hanging on for dear life. I mean, it was 3-4 foot seas, and they're hanging on there, bouncing around. We're just going along, and I'm like toasting to them. And that was like one of the best feelings, especially when they couldn't beat you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that was an iconic project too.
Yes.
Because that boat was, many people in the industry have watched the documentaries about that boat.
Yes.
And you and Franz Heesen got together, and Frank Mulder,
Yep.
You really changed the face of yachting, of big boat.
People didn't think it could be done. You know, when I went to Lawson, and I went to Aberking, and I went to Fedship, they laughed at me.
Right.
And we met Franz Heesen, and he said, I'll take the challenge.
Right, and it was a challenge.
Oh yeah, it was great.
It was quite a challenge. So was that the fastest boat you had in the big boat world?
No, World is Not Enough was the fastest boat.
That was the fastest one.
Yeah, World is Not Enough, we built it to do 70 knots. We never did 70 knots. We did 68 knots, 67 knots. The boat would spin out.
Really?
It was like a jet ski.
Right.
And when you got to a certain point, it would spin out. And we did everything to try and keep the boat straight. We put skags on it. We did this. We did everything. And finally, when we were selling the boat, we got out of the boat, we found out what the problem was at the end.
Really?
But it was too late. You know, it was too late. The boat was already sold.
Right.
We only ran 90% power that boat. We could never run 100% power.
No kidding.
But if you ran like 65 knots, straight as an out boat was incredible.
Like she was on a rail.
Yes.
It's interesting, and a lot of people don't realize that in the marine world, it's quite a lot like trying to break the sound barrier in an airplane. It takes geometrically more horsepower and more hydrodynamics to get to that 50, 60 knot point than it does, to get up to that point. So in the aviation world, the closer you get to the sound barrier, the more power it takes to get there, and it's exponential.
And the more fuel you're burning.
Well, it always takes more fuel. It's all about BTUs, right?
Yes.
It absolutely is. So let me ask you something. You built a lot of boats, and you built them all around the world.
Yep.
How was your experience building boats in Europe versus building boats in the United States?
I've only built 2 boats in the United States. Most of my European experiences were pretty good.
Okay.
Especially when you had a shipyard that had something to prove. Mm-hmm. The biggest killer is when they come in with these change orders, and you don't realize, like, you'll walk in and you'll say, I want to do this, this, and this, and this, and then next minute you get a bill 400,000 euros or something. And they wouldn't say, well, if we're going to do this, there's going to be a time delay, and there's going to be an extra expense. So it's got to be a little bit of awareness. The key of building a boat is you got to make the plans as perfect as they can be. Try to avoid change orders.
Right.
And that's a big one, because you could spend $3, $4, $5 million in change orders.
There are a lot of guys in the construction business riding around on boats called change order.
That's it. That's exactly.
Specifically because of that.
Yes. Well, that's where it started, change orders from in the construction business.
Right. Right. Well, that's a very good point. Have a plan going in and stick to your plan.
Correct. Get a good set of drawings on the boat and know what you want.
Working with a naval architect who really is able to dot all the I's, cross all the T's.
Now they have 3D visioning, so you can see it in 3D. You could really know what the room is going to look like.
Right.
Towards the end, when we started building, and we built a lot of boats. We built about 19 boats ourselves with the different shipyards. We would make a mock-up of how big the room would be, where the toilet's going to be, how everything's going to lay out. When you walk in, you say, wait, move that, move this. It's easier than trying to do it after the boat is being built.
Oh, absolutely, and significantly less expensive.
Oh yeah.
You can move digits around a lot faster than you can move bulkheads, for sure. So you say 19 boats at this point.
That's correct.
So as brokers and as salespeople in the industry, what advice could you give to them with regard to new builds, and whether it's a new Viking or a new galleon or it's a new custom build? What advice would you give to them in interacting with the buyer of the boat early in the game?
The key is the broker has to stay focused. Mm-hmm. Yes, he's in it to make a commission, but sometimes the commission makes him a little bit sideways with certain things. I mean, most brokers are really, really good and really focused, but the biggest thing is keeping the owner in the loop.
Right.
Especially if the broker is involved in everything. And staying focused and calling the owner once in a while. Don't just get the sale and then go on to the next boat. The problem is I'm a little bit more of a hands-on guy. So I'm talking to the broker, I'm talking to the shipyard, I'm talking to the naval architect. I'm talking to everyone. Mm-hmm. And sometimes some brokers say, no, just go through me. But that's a little uncomfortable for me. Some owners, they're okay with. Some owners, they want to just walk on the boat when it's finished. I mean, I'll visit the boat when it's being built in Europe. If I don't visit it 7 times, I have my own plane. I spend probably about $400,000 on fuel and going back and forth to Europe on my plane.
That's a part of your budget when you consider the build.
That's exactly correct, because I'm always involved and I got to walk in it. And they got to get to the boat to a certain point, and then I got to show up there. Right. Even though I have a project manager, my crew is there, my captains are looking, I have to go there.
Well, you make a really important point in that at the very beginning, you have to establish the relationship with the buyer as to how engaged in the process he wants to be. And if he wants to be fully engaged like you are, you needed to develop a plan where you guys can interact together well and keep everyone informed. If the guy wants to just show up when it's ready to break a bottle of champagne on the bow, that's great. I'll let you know how we're doing and how much, where to sign. But with a person like you who's engaged in the process, what I've tried to do anytime I've been in a situation like that is learn from that, because a person like you has a huge amount of experience. And if I let my ego get out of the way and my being in charge get out of the way, I have an opportunity to learn a lot of things about the process, about the people, about the yard, about new technologies that I didn't know. Be humble and learn. Listen.
Very, very important. I'm involved with everything from the plumbing to the air conditioning.
Right.
And I tell everybody, this is a funny thing. If you have a boat and it's at a dock and the engines don't run, you can still have a party as long as the toilets work,
right,
the showers work, and the air conditioning works.
And not necessarily in that
People
order.
don't know the engines aren't running.
Right.
I remember going to a boat show and the boat wasn't ready and they towed us in. Nobody knew we got towed in. I said, tow us in the middle of the night. I don't want nobody to see us. But, boating is it's in your blood.
It absolutely is, and I think that's a commonality shared throughout the industry, whether we're in the sales side of it, whether we're in the service side of it, whether we're in the ownership side of it. It's a passion for most of us. Tell us, if you would, what is it that boating represents to your family that a home in the mountains or a house at the beach or a vacation in a villa in France doesn't give to you? How is it that boating works for your family differently than other pursuits?
It's funny you asked that question, because we had a ranch in Jackson Hole, and then we had another ranch in Colorado, which was nice. Mm-hmm. But going on a boat, if we're on a boat and we're at a Pacific place and we want to change, let's go. Mm-hmm. If we want to go to a different location, let's go. We want to go to an area with a little different weather, let's go. So when you own a boat, you have more ability to enjoy it more than, you go to a ranch, it's there. And then if you get bad weather, you're stuck there. Mm-hmm. And you don't know what's going to happen when you have bad weather. You get on a boat and you have bad weather, you can move to another location. You don't like your neighbor, move.
Untie your lines.
The guy's making too much noise, they're having a party, let's get out of here.
Right.
Gives you so much more openness in my mind. And, and I really enjoy traveling around on the boat. So, you get tired of New York, you go to Europe. You get tired of Europe, you go to Croatia. You get tired of Croatia, you go to Greece. There's just so many things, and it's like having a floating closet, believe it or not.
Right.
You close it there, your people are there, they know what food you like, they know how everything you want it. Part of having a boat is naturally having a great crew. You got to have a great crew. And we've been kind of fortunate. We have a terrific crew. They work for me a long time. Mm-hmm. We have a terrific chef. So the enjoyment of a boat is really a lot more enjoyable. And that's where the brokers come in, making it the sale enjoyment. They got to try and remember it's not going to be their last sale. Mm-hmm. So if the customer has a bad experience buying a boat, it's a problem.
Then it will be the last sale.
It will be the last sale, or it'll be the last time the broker handles them.
Right.
And then the people have a perception that all, brokers, they don't want to deal with them. But that goes in any business. You go to a restaurant, you get a bad waiter, doesn't mean the food's bad.
Right.
You just happen to have a bad waiter.
Right. The automobile business, you buy
way.
a car, there's a problem with it.
Listen,
those
right.
Toyotas are terrible.
In our car business, you come in and we see the deal is going a little sideways, we make someone go in and get into that deal, because maybe the guy said something wrong. Maybe he was there with his wife, he looked at his wife wrong. Some people don't understand. The guy's sitting there with his wife, and you're directing the questions towards the husband, and the wife says, "Wait a minute, I'm going to be driving this car."
She's the
so
decision maker.
A broker has to know how to handle everyone.
You're absolutely right, and it's about people, not the products.
That's exactly
It's about
correct.
studying and understanding the people that you're dealing with. Learn that first, and that'll help you with the product that you're trying to help them
They
enjoy.
need to know the product, because you get a guy in there, like we get people come in and know more about the cars than my salespeople do.
Sure.
And they ask a stupid question, and the guy says, let me go look it up. The same thing on a boat. Right. You know, one of the things I see that most boat brokers do, and it drives me crazy, I'm always looking at boats. As a matter of fact, I'm in the market now. I'm trying to buy another boat. And they never want to send the layout.
I think you just got the entire audience fired up when you said that.
Yeah. And you need to, when you send something, you got to try and make it as complete as possible. You got to call the customer, say, "Are you missing anything?" "Yes, I am. I'm missing the layout. I need a layout. I want to see the layout."
Right.
And you know, they send all these pretty pictures, but I don't see the layout. Mm-hmm. So at least you see the layout. I could show it. My wife looks at the layout. She's very involved in the thing.
Right.
Decorations, to me, is meaningless.
Sure.
Because most of the time, if you buy a used boat,
You're going to redecorate it
you're going to
anyway.
redecorate. Even if it's fantastic and beautiful,
You got to
you
personalize
got to put
it.
your touch in it.
Sure.
I mean, my wife, she's a dish nut. She got to change the dish. I said, "What's wrong with the dishes?" People are lucky. I would give them paper dishes. No. And, you know, everybody's feeling about something is different. You know, some people like plants, some people don't. Some people, this is in everything of that. So the broker has to understand that and make sure he's into this and could say, "Hey, don't worry about this." You know, some people like loud colors, some people like normal color. I don't know.
And it's how that person is invested in the
correct.
project, because it speaks to their passions and it speaks to their interests.
Yeah. I'm not a big email guy, but you know, if I'll let specs come in an email, I'm fine with that. But interaction with an owner is very important. "How you doing, Mr. Stallupi? Have you made up your mind? Have you seen anything?" But sometimes what they do is they inundate them with so many boats, and I just like lock into one boat, and there's another boat. Now I got to start all over. I got to
Confusing.
research it. I got to ask the questions. And I think sometimes if a guy says, "I'm looking for a 110-foot boat, a 120-foot boat," try and zero in at that 120-foot boat. A 200-foot boat, that's what I'm looking for. Because you know what happens? Guy says, "I want a 200-foot boat," and all of a sudden you take him on a 240-foot boat. And it's really out of that price range, and he goes on there, whether it's his wife or his girlfriend. Now you got this whole thing discombobulated because people are like saying, "Wait a minute." So I think they should try and focus in, you know, of what the customer wants.
It's a fine balance.
Yes, it
It's
is.
a fine balance. And listening, I think what I hear is listening is the key element.
Yes.
Listen to what it is that your buyer is looking for. Listen to what it is he thinks is going to meet his needs. Now, if your experience tells you that he wants to be able to take 12 people on the boat and he's trying to buy a 3-stateroom boat, that's probably going to tell you that you need to help educate him a little bit more.
That is correct.
And either he needs to adjust how many people he wants to have around on the boat, or he needs to have a boat that's going to accommodate the number of people he
Correct.
wants. So you've been a guy who's probably done more for this industry, I think, than, I mean, Bernie Little had a lot of boats, Jim Moran had a lot of boats, but I think that you've probably done more for this industry, from bottom painters to antenna installers and engine guys and painters and builders and brokers and everybody in between. What can we do to help people of means, people that have the ability, figure out the enjoyment of boating? What could the brokerage community do, the sales community do, to connect with the people that they're not getting engaged with right now? What could they do to help them understand the joy and the passion and the unique experience that the boating environment provides? And what you've done for the industry as a result of your passion of it.
So, again, you know, I have some friends of mine that are very wealthy guys, and their wives don't like to be on the water. Mm-hmm. Because they got a bad experience.
They need stabilizers.
Yeah, and you know, today's boats with stabilizers and gyros and offering a lot, You need to find that out. Some people like traveling all night long. And then some people say, I want to buy a brand new boat and I want to take it across the ocean. I've never took the boat across the ocean.
Right. You got
I
an
got a
airplane for
plane.
that.
I fly there. You get out in the ocean 14 days, 18 days, you get bed wet, especially when you're in a spot and you can't turn around.
Right.
Then you got to go some other place. I think they need to have people understand the person and what they're looking for. If I know this sounds crazy, but before I buy a boat, I have to sleep on it and take a shower. I know that sounds crazy.
No, it
I
doesn't.
could sleep in the best hotel in the world. I don't need to sleep on. But I'll tell you why I do that. First of all, most of the time I don't have a lot of crew, so I'd like to see the crew and how they're maintaining the boat. Second of all, I want to make sure that I'm very comfortable and at night that the boat's not noisy. Real important to me. Again, now some people are not that critical of things. I am. And I will go to a person and say to them, like my last boat, I said to the broker, I says, look, the boat was in Colombia and was going straight to Europe. I wasn't going to Colombia and I didn't want to go to Europe. I says, listen, I'll put up $50,000 non-refundable deposit if I don't buy it. If I buy the boat,
It goes towards the purchase price.
I bring the boat to the Bahamas. You don't have to go to the Atlantis. If you want to go to Atlantis, I have a slip there. Go right to Freeport. Me and my wife want to go over there. We want to see the boat in person. We want to spend the night. You sent me all these pictures, all this stuff. You tell me the boat needs a paint job, I'm fine. I'm great with that. Send the boat there. I want to sleep on the boat. I want to meet the people because I could use some crew. It's the largest boat I was buying, a 74-meter. And if I like the boat's never going to go to Europe. We're going to go right into survey. I went on the boat. I put $50,000 up. I knew it was non-refundable. We got there. I met with the cap, went with everybody, slept on the boat, stood on the boat, had lunch on the boat and dinner, listened to the boat, walked around the engine room, spent my own time on the thing, and I bought the boat. Now, again, I know boats, so
Right.
it's a little different than another boat, but at least it gave me the feel. And I wasn't in the prettiest place. We were in the marina in the Bahamas, and there was the captain said, "Would you like to go anchor out?" I said, "You know what? I would like to go anchor out." We went, we anchored out. He was very instrumental in selling this boat. And we went, we anchored out, and we stood there a couple hours. Got a little dark, then we came in, and I bought the boat.
Well, you learned to be intimate with the boat. You had a comfort level, and that was important to you. And you know, I've never been involved in that segment of the market, but I can tell you that when I was a crew member, one of the things that we always used to say, you know, if I'm going to buy a boat, I want to wash it first, because you can know it really well by washing the whole darn thing.
Some owners say nobody's sleeping on my boat, but at the same time, that same owner charters a boat. Well, do you
That doesn't
charter
make
the boat?
sense.
So charter me the boat for one day.
Right,
How's that sound?
Right.
Does that make you feel better? Charter me the boat for one day.
right.
I'll bring my own sheets and pillowcases. You know, you're trying, and when a guy gets the listing of a boat, again, know your customer and know the owner who's selling the boat. The broker needs to sort of talk to them and say, hey, we might have the person that might want to come on a boat, just like a boat show. Guy comes in a boat show, walks around the boat show, comes, sits on the boat. You know, you offer them a bottle of water, they sit down. You could tell who's real. I mean, it's very hard. Years ago, you couldn't because they didn't have internet. You couldn't look up a guy's net worth. You couldn't do this. But I always tell them, don't judge a book by its cover.
That's right.
Because there are some people out there that are billionaires, and you can't find them.
I think we, in our industry, encounter some of the biggest surprises of any industry.
Yep.
I've had fellows walk up wearing overalls.
Oh, yeah.
And with a Merrill Lynch CMA check in the pocket of his overalls. And he wrote the check and bought the boat at the show, never expecting that that was a guy who was a qualified buyer.
Well, it happened to me. When I sold Casino Royale, I was in the restaurant having dinner. My wife and I had a bunch of people. And I get a phone call. It's from the people who built the boat, Joe Folger. And he says, hey, There's a guy who's been looking at the boat, would love to see the boat, wants to buy the boat. I says, Joe, is the guy qualified? He says, I'm pretty sure the guy's qualified. He says, but he wants to see the boat. He's there. And I said, all right, listen, tell him to be on the boat tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, this guy comes walking down the boat. He looked like he needed a loan. That's how the guy looked. When I tell you he looked like he needed a loan. Big guy, nice person, heavy guy, smoking, with this beautiful young girl. I said, this guy's probably just trying to impress his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. So I said, look, we made the appointment, let him come on the boat. Guy comes on the boat, I'm sitting there with my wife, and I said, hello. He says, how you doing? I says, you know, I'm John Staluppi. He says, I know exactly who you are. And he starts walking around the boat, looking at the boat. And I says, I don't mean to be rude, but do you know how much I'm asking for the boat? He says, are you asking me if I could afford the boat? I says, yes. He says, I just sold my company for $3 billion. I just got divorced. This is my girlfriend. If you want, Google me. And I says, I don't need to Google you.
At the $3 billion, you had me, but when you told me you got divorced, I might have to check.
I said, and any guy that walks on here with a beautiful lady like this, and he was looking in the cabinets, touching the dishes and the forks. He says, is this included and this is included? So he's really asking me the right questions. And my name is David McDonald. I owned a company called Pelco, which was a camera company. I sold it. Mm-hmm. And Jeanette, my wife, she Googled him right away. I don't Google anybody.
Right.
I says, well, look, don't Google me. I'm happy the way I am. I says, we were talking, and we sat there for a couple hours. He says, I like to take the boat and pass by the front of my house with it. He says, I said, where's your house? And he says, I live in the One and Only Club. So I turned to my captain, which was my son-in-law. I said, Scotty, let's go past his boat, his house. We went past his house, and he had about 20 people happen to be there. And he said, can you get close? And I says, get as close as we could get, Scotty, without running the ground. Mm-hmm. And we got there, and I had a little tender. And I says, you want him to take you to shore? So we took him to his house so he could look at the boat from there.
From his dock.
Came back out. He came back out. He says, I want to buy the boat. I said, okay. And we started negotiating back and forth. And we were arguing over $1 million. And he says, what's $1 million? I says, to me, a lot. To you who just got $3 billion, doesn't mean anything. He's okay. He said, I want the boat now. I said, I'm out of here.
Excellent.
And he bought the boat.
But you never know. I was in my office one day several years ago, and a fellow pulled up in front and got out of his car. He was a big, tall guy, and he was wearing a ball cap and had holes in the knees of his jeans. And I looked out the window, and I thought, well, you know, this guy wants to know where the men's room is or something. He came in, and he says, how you doing? My name's Alan Jackson. Huh. You know, and we wound up doing a bunch of business, and he was a delightful guy to be with. But you can't plate class qualify.
Yes.
You got to be really careful.
Don't name the baby before it's born.
That's a good idea.
That's what some brokers do.
Right, right. So. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So let me ask you something, John. And I gave you fair warning on this, so I'm hoping you got a good one. What would you like to ask me? My job as the head of the IYBA is to try to raise the level of professionalism in our industry. And I can't do that without good input. I know what we do as an industry and what we do as an association. What would you like to ask me about what we do?
So, everybody in the brokers business, it's like a little bit of an organization, is that?
We're the association of yacht brokers, and our purpose is to promote professionalism and cooperation in the yachting industry. We do it through education, networking, and the removal of barriers to commerce.
So how do you do it through education? I mean, you have a trainer come in and train guys how to talk. You have a guy come in and talk professionally to some of these brokers?
We do it in a variety of different ways. In fact, this is one of the ways we do it, by allowing the brokerage community some insight into the mind of the owner. And what is it that the owner's thinking? What things do we need to be reminded of? We do 5 different seminars domestically and 2 internationally every year. So we do a yacht engineering seminar, which we did virtually this year. We did a 5-day event, 1.5 hours every day. And we bring in Caterpillar and Cummins and Northern Lights and Seakeeper and electronics manufacturers and all sorts of different people on the engineering end. And then we do the Yacht Sales Summit, which this segment is a part of. And that's to help our brokerage community understand about the methods in which we can market boats. We did, we did digital this year. We've done Pillars of Industry, which is the foundational principles of what have helped some of these guys be successful. We do something very successful called Yacht Sales and the Law. And in fact, the legal community is awarded CLE credits for attending that event. And then we do a new build and yacht sales event at the Monaco Yacht Club. We did that last year, and as much as we'd like to do it again this year, we're not going to be able to,
right.
But we have every intention of doing that going forward. So our educational events, we will bring in like the, not Tony Robbins, but the, I can't think of the name of it now, professional trainers. We bring in attorneys, we bring in insurance specialists, we bring in builders. So we try to bring as much education to the community as possible. To me, I think that that's critically important. That helps make them better at what they do. I mentioned something also in that one of the things we do is to try to remove barriers to commerce. So you're familiar with the fact that there's a maximum sales tax exposure in the state of Florida of $18,000. Well, that was done by the Yacht Brokers Association.
Wow. That was a good one.
I think it was a great one.
It was a great one.
I think it was a great one because what we were able to do, we did that in concert with the Marine Industries Association of South Florida. And what we were able to do was to help the legislators understand that this isn't a tax break for rich guys, it's about jobs. And we did a video called The Ripple Effect, and Bob Rossioli, God rest him, started the video by saying, this is about jobs, jobs, jobs. And that's what this industry means to the state of Florida and to the country, is jobs.
I'll tell you an important one I'd like to see you try and do.
Please.
And I've been lobbying for this and pushing for this. Allow a boat like myself to be able to fly American flag and have any crew. Doesn't have, right now you need to have an American crew.
Right.
Sometimes Americans don't want to work on boats, so we need a foreign crew. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to fly an American flag and have foreign crew. And I have no problem paying the duty, and I know a lot of owners don't have a problem paying the duty. But why shouldn't we be able to put that flag on our boat and have who we want? I love foreign flag, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. And when I went to Europe, I will always put a foreign flag on a boat. Mm-hmm. But we cannot fly an American flag over a certain size boat and have a foreign crew.
Well, there was a tonnage restriction of 500 tons, and that tonnage restriction has been removed in the NDAA, the National Defense Appropriations Act of 2018. What happened was Senator Reid from Rhode Island, with the inspiration of a wealthy American yacht owner, helped through Paul Ryan to understand the benefit of being able to fly American flag on recreational vessels in excess of 500 tons. So what they did is they removed the upper limit of 500 tons and they just made the designation recreational vessels. Now that's being written into, it was written into the NDAA. And the United States Coast Guard, which obviously oversees all that,
correct, was
mandated to bring forward a set of regulations that is in lockstep with LY3, Large Yacht 3. They have not completed that regulatory writing as yet, but that was something that USSA helped significantly to get done. And actually, I'm sure you know Rob Moss, David Moss from Alley Moss Rogers
Sure.
Lindsay in Palm Beach. David was very, very engaged in that process and getting that legislation passed. There are other intricacies like the Jones Act that are considerations. And while Senator McCain was very involved in trying to repeal the Jones Act, it was difficult to get headway because the headwinds are very stiff. I'm sure you know what it's like to try to get things done in Washington, D.C. One of the things that we've been working on for several years as an association is what we call deferred importation. So you know very well that if you want to bring your foreign flag boat here to the United States to sell it, you have to get a cruising permit when you enter.
Correct.
And clearly on the cruising permit it says, not available for sale to U.S. residents while in U.S. waters. So one of the initiatives that we've taken to D.C. and been pushing for 6 years is to have time changed so that the vessel can be offered to U.S. residents while in U.S. waters and the duty can be collected at the time of sale.
100%.
That,
100%.
So we've been working on that, and I'll tell you what, we'll talk off camera about how we can be more engaged in that process. We have 2 bills in Congress right now, one sponsored by Lois Frankel, who you know from the Palm Beach area, and one sponsored by Brian Mast, who you also know from the Palm Beach area.
Yep.
Brian Mast's bill is 2725. HR 2725, and it's in the 116th Congress right now. And Lois Frankel's bill, I can't remember the number of it offhand, I think it's 3669. But hers is deferred importation, and his is to remove duty altogether. Because when we approached Brian Mast and asked him if he would support Representative Frankel's bill, he went to CBP, he went to Customs and Border Protection, and said, what do you guys think about this? You know what they told him? They said in 2018, which was the last year that they could quantify at the time, $1.3 billion worth of boats were imported into the United States at a 1.5% duty rate, meant a collection amount of $16 million. It costs more than $16 million to collect it. Why are we doing this? So we've been trying to do things like this up in D.C. The challenge we face right now is the stimulus bills and all the infighting between the Republicans and the Democrats has really got us stalled. But I will talk with you more about how we can become engaged together in trying to make these things happen, because they're important for our industry. They're important to owners such as yourself who want to own foreign flag vessels. You're an American gentleman and you want to bring them here to the U.S. and engage in commerce here, and you're being prevented from that, or you have to pay the duty, or you have to go to a limited area.
But even if you want to pay the duty, you still can't have an American flag.
You can't have the American flag.
And you can't have a foreign crew.
Right.
And that's where the problems go. And I've been at the president's residence plenty of time, Mar-a-Lago, I'm a member there, and I've had this discussion with him, and he had no idea that this was going on. He didn't even know this was existing. And I know he made a phone call on it, and I know we made a little thing on it, because I've got a phone call from someone and saying, hey, I'm glad you brought this up.
I think there's a great opportunity for us to work together in how we can remove yet another barrier of commerce to our industry by working with the people that we know that have an interest. I mean, the gentleman in the White House right now has a pretty good history with yacht ownership.
Yes.
He bought Adnan Khashoggi's boat, and I know you and I both saw him ride around on that plenty of times. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, that's really interesting, and that's something that's important for us to hear, is we know from our brokerage community and we know from our legal community what's important to our owners, but I love hearing it directly from you, that this is something important to you. Is there anything you'd like to say to the brokerage community before we sign off for the day?
Gentlemen, I just would love to see everybody really take care a little bit more on their customer, not worry about whether they're going to get a sale or not. If they're not buying today, they might buy tomorrow. If
you take good care of them, the money will come. One of the questions that I was asked by Bob Dennison, of course, because Dennison's family has a history in U.S. shipbuilding, do you see a future in yacht building in the United States? Do you see that we could maybe regain any position in the world stage?
I do, and I think we would love to build a boat here in the United States, especially that we're building in dollars and not in euros, and we know what the end result is. I just think that the shipyard and the workmanship here has to move a different level to where people know they could get the level they want and the look they want. That's one of the businesses that I would buy and get in. because I know if I build boats, it'll be as good or better than any European boat ever built, because we would have the best people working on it. And I feel our people is as good craftsmen as their people are. It's just that we got to get them to take a little bit more pride in what they do.
Pride in their workmanship. Now that's really interesting, and that's encouraging to hear. And I would be willing to bet you that there are telephones being dialed right now with the words getting out. John Staluppi said he'd get in the middle of this if you guys bring the product forward.
Yep.
So, and I think we as an industry would cherish the opportunity to regain a position on the world stage in yacht building. And it's, you know, I think labor costs have had quite a lot to do with why we don't enjoy that position anymore. European labor costs aren't cheap, but what they've learned to do, you know, Poland is engaged a lot in the metal work, where the workmanship is good and the costs for that workmanship is down. A lot of the workmanship that's done, a lot of the metal work is done in Vietnam for some of the Dutch builders, and they bring the boats around and then finish them there. So there are probably other solutions that smart minds could employ.
But you could bring some of them here to do some of the work, the bulk work, and we could build this boat here properly. We could do it as, I mean, we got as good as welders, we got as good as fabricators. We could do anything here, but we need to be a little bit more committed and understand that, you know, the government in Europe helps the shipyards. So they'll give them the land to put up a shipyard to put people in. We have land all over the place.
Right.
We should do that. Our government should say, hey, we want jobs. We're not talking about 5 jobs. The guy said, oh, well, we gave 5 jobs. I'm talking about hundreds of jobs. So if we had a place to put a shipyard in, and it was easy to get to, just like what I'm talking about, you know, where I'm going to be in Riviera Beach, that whole area could be built up. There's plenty of places to
Well, that's something I want to chat about very briefly, and I'm very glad that you brought that up. So I don't think that the industry at large is aware of the fact that the Port of Palm Beach in Riviera Beach, there's a new involvement in yachting up there. Would you tell us about that a little bit?
Yep. So we took my son John Jr. and myself, we took over the port in Riviera Beach, and we're working on mega yachts.
Okay.
And we're trying to grow it to the point where we can have full service. People could come in there, have cars available for the people, but I want to be able to do everything and fix everything. The nice part is we have a deep port. We have between 20 and 40 feet, depending on what side of the port you're going to be on. Mm-hmm. And easy getting in and out.
Very accessible.
And being able to have this convenience for the owners to start building a ship there. You know, I would love to have it. We don't have enough room. Right. So if we were able to find an area where we had enough room in the United States, mm-hmm. where we could put a real shipyard, and I mean a real shipyard, just like a European shipyard, and build a real shed. I mean, listen, there's some big boat builders, but they're out in Seattle and they're out west, and you got to fly 5 hours, 6 hours to go there, and I think that's fine. People say, you know what, if we're going to fly 5, 6 hours, I might as well go to Europe. I could stop at Monaco. I could go to Monte Carlo. I could go here. I could go there. That's what a little bit of the attraction is.
Right.
But if they know they could get what they want here,
with the stability of the U.S. dollar,
that would be incredible. I'm going to build a new boat again, and I'm going to buy a new boat again, but I'm not doing it right now with the euro. You know, the euro is 118, 119. That means my dollar's worth nothing. So every dollar I want to put into it, I got to pay $1.18. It's crazy.
Right.
So that boat becomes more than what I could build it here for.
And in the period of time that it takes to build the boat, the fluctuation in the currency, you can win, you can lose, but you can't predict.
That's right, but then you got to buy the euro ahead of time.
Or you got to pay to hedge the currency. Correct. Which is another kettle of fish altogether.
Which is more money.
That's right. That's right. That's a very, very interesting thing that you bring forward, in that you guys are developing a super yacht facility in the Port of Riviera Beach, Port of Palm Beach at Riviera Beach. That's wonderful news. And I echo your challenge to the industry. Let's bring yacht building back to America. Let's regain a position of prominence. We have, over the years, enjoyed that. We'd like to see it again. Thanks again so much, John.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.